What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Brap Genius back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to drive a manual car. Yeah, start it off right, boys. Oh yeah, bud. Send it. Yeah. So before I go over everything, give you a nice little soundbite of the exhaust. That will never get old. All right, guys, so I'm gonna break this up into different parts. All right, we as humans, we learn basically one thing at a time is the best way for us to learn. You know, we can multitask, but it shows scientifically that we are best by learning one thing at a time. So instead of going over all different parts, I'm gonna do this basically one step at a time. If you guys could do me a huge favor before we get into this video, hit the like button. It does me a huge favor because it helps the YouTube algorithm know that, you know, I'm doing a good job. So do me a favor, hit the like button, and if you like these videos, hit subscribe. I've got a bunch of car content with this Mustang, dirt bikes, motorcycles, you name it, we got it, all right? So the first thing we're gonna talk about in this video, as I slowly back up here, you have 3 pedals at the bottom down here, okay? Now, normal car, I don't know how well you guys are gonna be able to see this, but you have your gas right there, and your brake, just as you would with a normal car. Manual car, you have a clutch over here, all right? Now your clutch basically allows you to, when you're shifting gears in an automatic car, it just does it for you. The clutch allows you to disengage with the gearing, and as you push in the clutch, it disconnects, and then that allows you to go through the different gears. So the big thing with the clutch too is, depending on the vehicle that you are driving, it may or may not be harder. If you have an older vehicle that does not have a hydraulic clutch, it's not that it's going to be possible, it's just going to be harder than it would be with a hydraulic clutch. Hydraulic clutch is more forgiving. They're more on the newer cars than they are definitely on the older cars. This car had it, and to be honest, guys, it makes it a lot easier for you. I started on this car, a 2013 Mustang GT, with a couple aftermarket parts on it. It has about 435 horsepower to the crank, and this is what I started on. I drove this 2.5 hours home. That was interesting. I'm going to make that a separate video. But if you have a hydraulic clutch, that's what's going to make your world a lot easier. Now, before we go into specifically what you need to do with the clutch, over here is your gear shifter. These are the only 2 different things that you have to deal with in a manual car. Is your gear shifter, which allows you to be in the different gears. As you drive an automatic car, you know, you can see your RPM. You see your RPM gauge over here, it goes up and then it kind of changes throughout itself. You can feel the car is shifting. In a manual car, it's the same process, except we shift it ourselves. And the reason people like manual cars is because you're more connected with the car, and it just gives you a better experience overall when you're driving. So this is the gear shifter. Now, we're just gonna focus on the clutch for now. It's down here. All you wanna do right now, car's off, in neutral, just play with the clutch. Push it in, get a feel for it. That's it. Just do this for a couple minutes. Push it in. All the way to the floor, all the way out, nice and slow. Feel it. Now, I will say this before we get into the driving aspect of this video. The biggest mistake that I see anybody use with clutches, you know, dirt bikes, motorcycles, cars, anything, they let out the clutch too fast. You know, sometimes you get a little bit panicked because this is something new to you, so you let it out faster than you should because you want to just get it, you know, out and going. You got to let it out slowly. If you're stalling, there's 2 reasons for stalling. You're either letting the clutch out too fast, or you're not giving it enough gas. Or possibly you're in the wrong gear, but that's a whole nother thing in of itself. So like I said, you're just going to practice with the clutch, pushing it in, pushing it out. That's it, okay? Do that for a little bit, get used to it. Now, when the clutch is in, like I said, your transmission disengages, and now you can shift to different gears. So when you have the clutch pushed in all the way, it gives you the ability to go through different gears, which is what I'm going to get into in a minute. That is what you want to do, and then what you're going to do is, once you're in whatever gear you're going to be in, you slowly let out the clutch, and then you're going to give it gas at the same time down there. So that's your goal, is to let out the clutch slowly while giving it gas at the same time. Before we get into that, next step. Over here we have the shifter, right? Now some cars while you're parked, if you're in neutral, you can just go through them. Depends. The way you know you're in neutral is in the middle. I bought this ball just because I like the way it looks, but for people that are new to driving, you know, getting one of these isn't a bad idea yourself, just so you know where the different gears are. You can see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then reverse. For this car to do reverse, you push down, you can see that moves, and then you can go up. That's reverse. Then you just push forward for 1, straight down to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So now you understand how the shifter works. Play around with that for a little bit. Like I said, this is how you check a neutral. Anybody that doesn't do this before they drive their car is psycho. They should be in a mental health ward. So now the next thing we're gonna do, like I said, this is all with the car off. You're not even gonna practice with the car on yet. You just wanna get a feel for all these because it's gonna make your transition process a lot easier once you actually start trying to drive the car. What you're gonna do is you're gonna push in the clutch and you're just gonna push this up into first gear, and that's it. Then let out the clutch slowly, back into neutral, clutch in, first gear, put it back in neutral, let out the clutch slowly. Clutch in, first gear, back to neutral, let out the clutch slowly. We're gonna do that one more time. Push the clutch in all the way, up into first gear. We're gonna put it back into neutral, we're gonna let out the clutch. We're gonna do that as well once we start learning how to drive the car, but you just wanna get used to that now. So you get a feel for what you're going to be doing when you're shifting. You're going to be moving your shifter into place while your clutch is in. So this gives you a feel for it, especially while the car is off. Now, those are the first two things. Practice those more than anything else. Doing those two things will make it a lot easier for you down the road. So the next step, guys, is once you get ready, once you get a feel for that, you feel like you're ready to start testing things out, this is where the next step comes into play. We're going to start to turn the car on and we're going to start to get a feel for driving. First thing you want to do is you want to be in an open parking lot like this. It gives you much more space. If God forbid you mess up or something, it gives you more time to correct yourself and brake if you need to. You can also do this in a cul-de-sac as well. Go somewhere where there's not a lot of cars, where there's as little stuff to hit as possible. That's going to be your best bet. So at this point, now we're gonna have the car ready to turn on, right? Clutch in all the way. You can start the car in gear, but if you let out the clutch, it's gonna jerk forward and stall. So it's always best to start your car in neutral. Got our e-brake on to hold us so that we don't go anywhere. Whenever the car is parked and you're not going anywhere, you should always have your e-brake up. So clutch in all the way. We're in neutral. There we go. So now we're stopped, right? Now if I let go of the e-brake, we're in a flat area. That's why I said you should try and find a flat parking lot. Once you get a little bit more advanced with this, you could start on a hill like this and learn how to ride up that. But for now, for this purpose, for the purposes of this video, we're just gonna start here, somewhere nice and flat, make it as easy as possible for you guys. So before we do this, I'm gonna get us lined up. You can get a little, like I said, you wanna line yourself up where you're gonna be in a good spot. So I'm doing the same thing, neutral, let the clutch out. Now at this point, you've got a bunch of space. This is not a race, guys. You don't need to learn this overnight. If you get frustrated, take a break, right? You don't have to learn this in 2 seconds. Some people, it comes very easy to them. Other people, it's not as easy. The best way you're gonna learn is by practicing. So, like I said, at this point, clutch in, down here below. Push the clutch in all the way. Now what you need to do, this is where it gets very important. When you're letting the clutch out, once you go into gear, like I said, you have to give it gas. These newer cars, if you want to try this is up to you. I think this helps a little bit. The newer cars with the hydraulic clutch, you can go into gear and you can actually, like I said, my right foot's not on the gas yet. If you let it out super slowly, very slowly, if you let it out very slowly, you can see I'm starting to move. My right foot, if you look at me, I'm not on the gas. So what this will allow you to do, like I said, if you have a mechanical clutch, this is not the case, but if you have a hydraulic clutch, they're much more forgiving, a lot easier to learn on. If you let it out super slow, watch my knee, watch how slow my knee moves. I'm going super slow. I'm inching like this every second, just a little bit, until it starts to grab, and you'll see now I'm very slowly starting to move forward here. But I'm not touching the gas with my foot yet. That's what I want you guys to do if you have the hydraulic clutch. Super slow. Super, I cannot stress that enough. Let out the clutch super slowly. And when you're in gear, it will allow you to move forward. And that point where that is, you want to get used to it. Let it out really slow and see where it starts to move. Right now it's starting to move a little bit. About halfway is where my clutch starts to move. So what this means is when you're in gear and you're giving it throttle at the same time, which is what you have to do to have a smooth transition when you're in gear. First gear is the hardest. That point is where the clutch starts to grab onto the gear. And once that happens, that's when you give it the gas and you can have the nice transition to have it go nice and easy. Same thing with the mechanical clutch. It's just not going to allow you to, you know, let it out like that and slowly, because the hydraulic clutch just basically is forgiving and it allows you to do that. The mechanical clutch, you have to just go clutch and gas and, you know, really just learn that way. This is the easier way to do it with the hydraulic clutch. So clutch in, push up into first gear. Now this time what we're going to do is we're going to give it a little bit of gas while we let out the clutch super slowly. So slow. You hear I'm giving it gas. That's why I like this car for this video. I'm gonna roll down my windows so you guys can hear how much gas I'm giving it. Look at the RPM gauge and see where I'm at when I let go. Ready? See that? For me to start moving, I'm only at about 1,500 RPMs. So clutch is in. Whenever you're slowing down and stopping, you're gonna let off the throttle. If you're still in gear, you have to always hold the clutch in. If you let the clutch out, you're gonna jerk forward and stall. So right now I'm going to stop for a second, so I'm going to come back into neutral. Now I can let out the clutch. So now at this point, we're literally just going to practice this for a while until you get really used to it. Clutch in all the way. Push up into first. If you want to practice that a couple times, it's fine. Come back into neutral, let out the clutch. Clutch in all the way. Push up into first. Back into neutral, let out the clutch. When you're ready to start driving, clutch in. Push it up into first gear. Now you're gonna let out the clutch slowly. Watch how slow my leg moves. And you're just gonna give it throttle. And then as you can hear it's starting to match, then you let out the clutch more and more until you're fully out, until you let the clutch all the way out. And then at that point you're moving. First gear is the hardest. That's where you guys are gonna practice the most, because that's where you're gonna stall the most if you have that problem. So once again, I still have my clutch in, I'm still in gear. So I'm just gonna keep practicing that for now. Let the clutch out slowly, give it a little gas. Clutch is out all the way. Now you're good. Drive around in first gear for a little bit, get the feel of it. If you have a hydraulic clutch, you know, it's easier, like I said, and just keep driving around the parking lot practicing. Like I said, it's best once you come back to a stop, put it into neutral, let out the clutch, and do the whole process over. Repeat this process a bunch of times, really just to familiarize yourself with what you're doing. The more you know, the better off you're gonna be. Clutch in, up into gear. Same thing again. Let out the clutch slowly and give it just a little bit of gas. Now to give you a reference for that, for what we're looking at, the same time that you let out the clutch is the same time you want to give it gas. So if you're looking at it like this, right? Say my clutch is in all the way right now, throttle's here. What I'm gonna start to do is let out the clutch a little bit and then start to give it some gas. Once it gets to that point where you can feel the clutch really start to grab, that's when you give it a little bit more gas. So a little bit more gas, just like that. So if these are my feet, clutch is in all the way, gas is up here, right? Let it out, start to give it some gas. Nice and slow, guys. That's the most important thing when you're doing this. Give it gas slowly, let the clutch out very slowly, and that's gonna give you a smooth transition. So watch again, clutch out slowly, a little bit of gas, let the clutch out nice and slowly, there you go, smoothly. Now your foot's off the clutch, you're in first gear. So that is the biggest thing that you need to know when you are learning how to drive a manual car. That's what's probably going to take you the most time to get used to, and that's probably where you're going to be jerking the most. Like I said, if you're jerking a lot as well, that just means you're letting out the clutch too fast again. Let out the clutch a little bit slower, you know, just keep coming off, but just come off nice and slow. Next step from here is we're going to learn how to shift. So I'm going to back up real quick just to give myself the best, most amount of room to shift up. All right, always got to check in neutral. That's how you do it, right? So clutch is out again, one more time. Clutch in, up into gear. Now, when you shift into other gears, it's the same principle. You're gonna have different levels on the RPM range here where you're gonna wanna shift. Everybody has their preferences. Unless I'm really going, you know, fast, I usually shift somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 RPM. So you're gonna see, same thing, let out the clutch slowly, give it some gas, we're in first gear. Now same thing, clutch in, shift in a second, right? And then as you get to the end, brake, push the clutch in, back into neutral. Then you can let out the clutch. Turn around, show you guys again real quick. There's not as much room here to go into multiple gears. I'm gonna go out on the road for a second and show you guys that as well. And then that'll probably conclude the video. But like I said, I have enough room here to go in a second. So we're gonna show you one more time. Clutch in, up into gear. You're gonna let out the clutch very slowly while you give it a little bit of gas. A little bit of gas, you can hear it rev up. Let out the clutch slowly till it's out all the way, which it is. Rev up, shift it, same thing. Clutch in, down, let up slowly, and that's it. So when you guys are pushing the clutch in, you can push the clutch in fast. It's just when you let it out, you wanna let it out slow. So just like that, nice and slow. Now when I shift in a second, watch. I push it in fast so that I can shift the gear, and then I let out the clutch very slowly. I'm in second gear right now. So that's the next thing you're gonna wanna practice, all right? Now there's gonna be downshifting. Downshifting is the same principle, right? The reason for downshifting is when you're at too low of an RPM, like right now I'm at about 1,000, that's pretty low. That's when you wanna go back up into a lower gear. So it's the same thing, you push the clutch in, now you're just gonna go back up into first. And then let it back out. Now we're at a nice pace, right in between 1,000 and 2,000 RPM, for this speed anyway, right? But then as soon as you start to get a little higher, clutch in, hold down in a second, let out the clutch slowly, give it gas. And that's it, guys. It's really not that hard. Downshifting, like I said, we're coming up to a stop sign. We're at 1,000 RPM, clutch in, shift up. You're gonna let out the clutch slowly while you give it gas. Now with downshifting, you wanna give it more throttle than you normally do when you're upshifting, because you want to keep, it's called rev matching. The RPM would be at a certain range at that gear. You want to have the RPM match that range, so you do that by giving it throttle. See right there, hold it at 2,000. That's how you would do that. So we're gonna do the same principle now. Going out on the road, I want to show you guys this for when you go out on the road. A lot of these videos show you when you're in a parking lot, but you know, once you get out on the road, it's a whole different feel. So I want to give you this visual of what it's going to look like when you go out onto a road. You should probably start on some side roads. I already know how to drive, so it's fine. Now, clutch out nice and slowly. We're in first gear. All right, now this is where shifting comes in. You see I'm at about 3,000. Clutch in, down. Let the clutch out as you give it throttle. Same thing, we're gonna shift again. Clutch in, up, throttle, and let the clutch out slowly. Once again, clutch in, down into fourth, throttle, all at the same time, guys, same thing. Clutch in, put it in the gear, give it throttle. Clutch in, put it in gear, give it throttle. Let out the clutch slowly. And that's really it, guys. There's really not much else to it. So hopefully this video helps you guys. I hope it does. If you guys made it this far, thank you for watching. If you like Mustangs, you want to see more Mustang content, subscribe and let me know in the comments down below. If you have any questions or anything, as always, let me know. I love talking to you guys and helping people out. So you guys have a great day as always, and I will see you in the next one.